Top 5 fitness myths, nicely tucked into the fitness myths playlist. You're going to have to trust me, like Mourinho trusted his barber. This is a rapid fire video. I'm going to give you 5 fitness myths and debunk them, and thereby giving you the correct way to think about these ideas, which can help you in your fitness journey. Think of it as fitness speed dating, and this is what you're sitting opposite. Sorry about that. And as with all information within this video, you must take it and apply it to yourself. The downside of covering so many topics in one video is that I cannot go into depth on every single issue. However, I do have single videos on some of these concepts linked below. And indeed, in those videos, I do break down the research. I do also cite researchers and expert insight. As I say so often on this channel, I am not an expert. I cite people who are. And so as a warm-up, the training mask and the waist trainer are issues I've discussed before on this channel. They are both hilariously terrible. Myth number 1, the post-workout anabolic window. There is no strict window of opportunity post-workout whereby you have to intake nutrients, otherwise your training session is wasted. The caveat to that is when you're training biceps. You may have heard this countdown timer being 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour. It doesn't matter, it's all made up. Enter the protein window. The 30 minutes following an intense bout of exercise is that short, sweet window of opportunity where you can capitalize on your hard work to the greatest degree. The idea of taking in protein before a workout or after a workout is not bro science per se. It is this strict, generic, anabolic window that is projected whereby you have to rush to the locker rooms and down a protein shake, for example. Otherwise, the hard work you've put into that session is lost. That's completely incorrect. And the key point to take away is that nutrient timing is more nuanced than a strict anabolic window. In conclusion, current evidence does not appear to support the claim that immediate consumption of protein pre and or post-workout significantly enhances strength or hypertrophic related adaptations to resistance exercise. There is a study by Schoenfeld and Aragon which looked at longitudinal data, and that's very important in research, to look at longer term data where we can take a step back from an issue and essentially gives you a fuller picture of a concept. When we look through a short-term lens, acute data, the information we have can be very different to when something is studied over a more longer term period of time. And what they concluded by looking at the evidence base is that nutrient intake after your workout is more like a flexible barn door rather than such a narrow window. And this is what those researchers stated in a separate research paper. The window of opportunity is not as narrow as previously proposed, as muscles are sensitized to protein intake for at least 24 hours after a training bout. And so this is their recommendation based on the current body of evidence. To maximize muscle hypertrophy, consume high quality protein at a dose of 0.4 to 0.5 grams per kilogram of lean body mass, both pre-exercise and post-exercise, within about 4 to 6 hours of each other. When it comes to the exact amount of protein intake, I have a video on that. When it comes to the quality of protein and essential amino acids, I have videos on that. Of course, you can eat post-workout. You may be hungry, you may want to cover your bases, but the point that I'm projecting is there's no mad rush to shovel food down your throat, aka the Nikocado avocado. You don't need to rush and slam a protein shake. You can have your shower, you can go home, you can chat to your family and your friends, you can watch Coronation Street, and you can eat your meal. And much of this nonsense is projected by people in the supplement industry who thereby sell these supplements which are convenient for your anabolic window. And don't forget the intra-workout window.
Behave yourselves.
However, here is some nuance. If you are fasted before your training session, you haven't eaten, then the need would therefore increase for you to take post-workout protein after your session. Also, as perspective, the most important factor for your muscle growth and protein is your overall protein intake throughout a day, which leads me nicely to my next myth, the supplement industry. It's funny because it's true. But no, for number 2, let's go with the need to feel muscle soreness after a workout for effective muscle growth. When it comes to the topic of muscle soreness, I'm not using any "that's what she said" jokes, but I really want to. When it comes to DOMS, the delayed onset of muscle soreness, which is caused by the eccentric contraction of a lift, whether or not people feel this is actually very multifactorial in itself. It can very much depend on the person. How much soreness you feel after an exercise may be different to the person next to you. There's a very genetic element to that. In addition, other variables for feeling muscle soreness would be, are you a beginner who's just started training? You may therefore feel more muscle soreness, for example, in your first week of lifting weights than someone else. However, the key point is that muscle soreness, DOMS, is not a key indicator for muscle growth. If you don't feel muscle soreness after your sessions, it doesn't doesn't mean your session was not effective. As long as you have those key processes and base layer principles for muscle growth, being, for example, progressive overload, being your protein intake, being your consistency of training over time, then that's what's going to contribute to your muscle growth. Do not worry if you don't feel muscle soreness as long as you are training with those scientific principles. 3, you cannot change muscle fiber type. So I have videos on muscle fibers where I cite experts such as Dr. Andy Galpin, and essentially we have many types of muscle fibers. Type 1 muscle fibers, the more endurance-based fibers. Type 2A and type 2X muscle fibers, the more power-based fibers. And we also have hybrid muscle fibers, where essentially a muscle fiber is transitioning from one type to another. And it's very useful to think of muscle fibers on a spectrum, and I have detailed, in-depth videos explaining muscle fibers. However, a key point and a myth to dispel is that you cannot change your muscle fiber type. You absolutely can. However, the caveat is that it's more prevalently seen that type 1 fibers can be turned into type 2 fibers rather than the other way around, type 2 fibers turning into type 1. In addition, we don't know exactly how to change muscle fiber type with specific training protocols. We don't know how much of a change you can make. We don't know how fast this change can be. So although the active researchers know that muscle fibers can change type, how exactly to program this and the absolute minutiae of how this works is still relatively unknown. More research needed. Number 4, back to supplements. And so what I decided to do for number 4, the myth, is actually to give you the truthful, honest communication of if you do choose to take some supplements, why you may take them, and the categorization of supplements. With supplementation, you need to look at the quality of the ingredients and also the dosage of those ingredients for effectiveness. Essentially, supplement intake come down to 3 areas. Convenience, something such as a protein powder, which you don't need to take, but it may be convenient for you to hit your protein macros throughout the day. And then we have variations of protein powder, such as casein protein, which is a slow digesting protein powder. And I made a video on this. However, essentially, you don't need a casein protein powder to keep your muscles fed throughout your sleeping time. In taking adequate protein throughout the day, again, is enough to feed your muscles for muscle growth. And other things you're going to look for is how many artificial fillers and gunk is in there, how much protein are you actually getting per scoop within the supplement you are buying. The most important intake of supplements comes down to deficiency for some people. For some people, their body may not produce some form of substance, so they have to supplement for their specific needs. Some people may be on a very specific diet, and thereby they may not be able to get certain nutrients into their body through their very specific diet, and thereby may need to supplement. And then we have performance, something like creatine, which absolutely is a valid supplement if you want to pursue that route. And this essentially helps with the conversion of ADP into ATP, the body's usable energy source. And if you want a more detailed explanation, again, watch this video. But creatine is a highly valid supplement, and it's actually one of those very rare supplements that you actually may struggle to get the adequate adult dose through whole food sources. And also within this performance category, something like caffeine, which absolutely can be an ergogenic aid, an aid to achieving certain results. And if you want a more detailed discussion, again, this video. Number 5, the last myth, epoch from HIIT, high intensity interval training. HIIT training is a great tool you can use. Absolutely, you can do it. It burns a relatively large amount of calories in a short amount of time. However, the myth is that people will tell you that after your HIIT session, you're burning a ridiculous amount of calories just by doing nothing due to the high intensity of that workout. Now, it is true that you do burn extra calories after a HIIT workout. However, the actual amount is far less than you may think. The actual calorie burn post a HIIT session is called EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. And so after a HIIT session where you've been absolutely smashing it, your body wants to return to a level of homeostasis. It wants to balance out its systems. It's freaked out, it's panicked, it doesn't like it. And so essentially there's an oxygen debt where it needs to intake oxygen to help to reset these systems, and that is what's known as the oxygen debt, or EPOC. And by doing this, you're actually burning extra calories. Now, you may have heard many figures. You're going to burn an extra 200, 500, even 1,000 calories up to 24 hours after, or whatever. The actual truth is that you burn somewhere in the range of 7 to 14% of the amount of calories burnt within your HIIT session post-workout as an additional benefit. And absolutely, that can contribute to your caloric deficit, which will help to create fat loss. However, for example, if you burn 200 calories in your HIIT session, that would be somewhere in the range of 14 to 28 extra calories burnt post-workout. Burning 500, you would burn somewhere in the range of an extra 35 to 70. That is a numeric amount, but it's not as significant as the myth is projected to you. We have studies such as Laforgia 2006, where EPOC is determined by how hard you are working, your intensity in your session, not duration, not how long the HIIT session is, but by how hard it is. And so absolutely you can do HIIT training. It is a great tool to use, but please be aware of what it is and what it isn't. If you're going to use HIIT training, use it because you want to burn those amount of calories, for example, in that amount of time. A time efficient, convenient way of burning those calories, which can contribute to your caloric deficit, which can lead to fat loss. Now, there's no such thing as a top 5 fitness myth list, because of course that'd be subjective, what people find more important than others. I use that title to frame this video so I could give information. However, you may have other fitness myths which you believe are highly important. Please share them down below, as ultimately it can help all of us to think about fitness in the right way and be successful. I'm James Linker, this is Shred Sports Science. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon.